Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the final segment of the day here on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show thus far. Our final segment will be returning to the topic of Thursday Night Football and going over some of the stardom sit-em situations we have here. Now, I kind of feel like it's kind of clear-cut in terms of stardom sit-em, and this is just my opinion, but I would love to hear your comments as well about who you feel like could be a viable play in this game and who you might have on your bench for this game. Because a lot of people, in fantasy football prefer not to have the bulk of their players play on Thursday Night Football, and you might have a lot of these guys on your bench either way. But just for this game, if this were the only game this week, these would be the players who I would say start and sit. The first one I kind of feel is easy, but it also could backfire on me a little bit, and that is Dak Prescott as a start guy in this game. He's the kind of fantasy quarterback where you're not necessarily, willing to start him week in, week out, but you're not kicking yourself over kind of mistakenly leaving him as your starter, He's one of those guys who, week in, week out, at least can be relied upon to put up good yardage, but he's not, the guy like Allen or Burrow who you can be like, okay, I need this guy to start for me every single week of the season. But for this game, like I said, I'm more concerned about what the Cowboys offense looks like than what Dak Prescott looks like right now. Because Dak Prescott could be a problem as the season goes on, but he's not the biggest problem the Cowboys have to fix. I think that, after that initial confidence in that Cleveland game going into these other games, it was just kind of a reality check. But as the season goes on and he's playing more divisional games in games that he feels like he can win, he's going to be relaxed. And that should be enough for some games where you feel confident saying, hey, maybe I can start Dak Prescott. And in deeper leagues, he adds value as a QB2 most importantly. So right now, I feel like this could be a week where you're not necessarily miffed that if you mistakenly start him, then your team is screwed. I think that this is a week where you feel kind of comfortable saying, oh, Dak Prescott could be an interesting starting QB for me this week, and I'll be fine with that. Because this matchup, at the very least, you kind of have to favor him in. Not necessarily as heavily as prior years, but he's still the heavy favorite in this game. I think he'll put up good numbers as well. But a guy who I think you have to sit, and I could have said any number of Cowboys running backs this year, but it is Ezekiel Elliott. As Frizzy LL has another comment as well. Roschon Johnson or Tyler Battier, who just got signed today, to pick up moving forward in the season. This is an interesting question because this is in the weeds of the running back market, my friend. This is a very, very deep question here because you're probably looking at these guys as RB3s, really kind of deep bench players who you might throw into your team a week or two in a desperate situation. And both of these guys, though, I really like. But I kind of feel like Battier, and I could be wrong here because I'm not necessarily, I try to remember all these like lower tier kind of guys. I believe he plays for the Broncos, if I'm not mistaken. Tyler Battier has really, in the few moments I've seen him, shown that for a fantasy football manager who is just trying to balance their team, he can get good yardage. Now, both of these running back rooms, for the most part, are quote-unquote loaded, but I feel like the Bears' running back room is just a big kind of mess, whereas the Broncos' running back room feels more defined and it has more versatility to it, and it has more opportunities, thus, for a guy like Tyler Battier to get more touches. Whereas Roschon Johnson, I had high hopes for him. As a Texas fan, seeing him at Texas, I liked what I saw out of him as an RB2 behind Bijan for many years. But in this Bears offense, he's just going to really struggle to get a lot of good, meaningful touches. So I really like Tyler Battier, and I know where you're coming from as someone who's just trying to round out their team. So I kind of feel like this question could have gone either way, but just based off of what I see from both their offenses and the eye test, I like Tyler Battier a lot if that helps you out. But good luck to you in determining who is your RB3 or just another little bench player for you to balance out your team. And in terms of Ezekiel Elliott, another guy who's falling lower and lower in the running back pecking order in fantasy football, I could have put any Cowboys running back up here. I guarantee you guys would probably have had no qualms with me here. I just feel like no matter who's out there on the field in the run game for the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to have a hapless situation in front of them. And it's through their fault of their own, like I said. I can harp on all the situations in which the Dallas Cowboys, as Frizzy LL says, yeah, it helps me. I think O-line is also better for the Broncos anyways, which helps. I think that's another fantastic point as well. I think that the Bears' offensive line just makes life difficult for any running back. For example, I myself have a Bears running back in my fantasy team as my RB2, DeAndre Swift. I expected him to have a big season because wherever he's gone, whether it be the Lions, the Eagles, or now Chicago, I feel like he can add impact to this team, but he just hasn't. So I agree with your sentiment a lot. It also comes down to O-line play. I think that O-line play really matters, especially for a guy who you view as an RB3 in real life and in fantasy in terms of rounding out your team. So, speaking of, though, O-lines that might be a little bit worse than we expected in terms of helping the run game, Ezekiel Elliott. I think that he's an immediate sit in my mind. I wouldn't start him for the rest of the year. I wouldn't start any Cowboys running back for the rest of the year. I know a lot of people liked Rico Dowdle as a nice play. I don't trust him. And it just seems like they made a really, really, really terrible decision in letting Tony Pollard walk. Yes, I know you want to commit money to CeeDee Lamb, but that's, again, the fruits of your decisions are playing out in the field right now. If you had Tony Pollard, maybe this offense would be a little bit more balanced. So what goes around comes around for Dallas. But let's get to the Giants side of things a little bit. And this is an immediate start for me, in my opinion, after what we saw of him in that Cleveland game. Malik Nabers. Now, he's kind of a little bit of a tentative play for me as well, because I think that this game is going to be a little bit more tense for the Giants offensively in terms of, trying to get ahead of itself. But as long as, Daniel Jones, Malik Nabers stay on schedule with each other, and as long as, most importantly, the football is protected, then I feel like Malik Nabers can have a touchdown or two and decent yardage in this game. I think that, as Hunter18 enters the chat, thank you for watching, Hunter. I think that Malik Nabers is going to be someone who you're going to appreciate a lot if you're, say, in a PPR league later in the year. But he does kind of feel like more of a dynasty league kind of guy. If you are anyone else in the chat is a dynasty league kind of player. But I feel like, as Hunter18 actually says, would you start Wan'Dale Robinson or Michael Wilson this week in a PPR league? I was just about to mention Wan'Dale Robinson as well as potential sit option, so I think that answers your question. But actually, I don't necessarily like Michael Wilson all that much. These are both guys who I would potentially sit this week, but if you had to, give me one option and force me to say one option, I would go with Michael Wilson, because Wan'Dale Robinson, for the time being at the very least, is not someone I rely upon all that much. But in this game, it's obvious who I feel like Daniel Jones is going to be comfortable with, and I hope it's not to the detriment of this Giants house, because I still feel like the sky could be the limit for Wan'Dale Robinson. I think that he's actually the second best receiver on this team when all is said and done for Daniel Jones. So I think that in the future, maybe I would have more positive things to say about Wan'Dale, but right now, I don't have much confidence in him. But Malik Nabers, I kind of do have confidence in, especially in PPR leagues in the future. But then the sit guy is Wan'Dale Robinson, like I said. As Hunter18 said, I'm benching Wan'Dale, though. I guess I can start him. It will be kind of a push-pull situation here, because I wouldn't fault you if you think that, the Giants' offense will try to get him the ball more. But I feel like right now the most important thing that's going for the Giants right now is that Jones-Nabers connection, and it could lead to the detriment of guys like Wan'Dale and Jalen Hyatt. And so, as actually I think he's mentioning Jalen Waddle as well. So I think that, any option right now for you that seems viable, could be the play for you, as he does say that it is Jalen Waddle, because both of these guys right now are not in the best situations, you would say. I still think that Michael Wilson, though, would be the best play, but that's just me. And these guys are really in situations where I don't see them getting the ball that much either way. But the reason why I think Wan'Dale Robinson for now is a sit, because I just feel like it's going to take some time for Daniel Jones to get away from the whole Nabers narrative a little bit. I feel like he's going to, like I said, he's going to want to feed Nabers the ball early and often in this game. And to keep ahead of schedule, though, in the future, he's going to need to understand that Wan'Dale Robinson can be a viable asset for him. So in terms of fantasy, though, I don't see a path where Wan'Dale Robinson's going to match the numbers of Malik Nabers in the near future. So for now, this week, I would say that benching Wan'Dale Robinson is a smart decision, and Jalen Waddle, and starting Michael Wilson, at least for you, Hunter 18 is a viable option. For any other fantasy football managers out there, Wan'Dale Robinson is a sit for me. But let me know what you think in the comments. That will just about do it for today's show, though. It has been a great show today. Thank you for all the comments. Keep them coming. The super chat, super things, and super stickers features here on YouTube. But this has been the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. I've been Christopher Shepard. Consider liking, following, and subscribing to the show and the network as well. Always a great way to support us all at the podcast network. It is greatly appreciated as well. But we'll be back here same time as always, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, with another great show ahead for you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I am out.